Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Happy Wednesday. Is Michigan about to get the hammer? People have been asking me all day about that, but what Pete Thamel released with the NCAA is very, very interesting. Is Ohio State about to pick up another superstar defensive line commitment? We're going to break all of that down. As always, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. You get alert every time we go live. Little late tonight. My little angry minion children wanted some Jersey Mike's. So I had to go pick that up, so I apologize for that. But as always, if you guys enjoy this stuff, we appreciate you guys so much. This will be a huge show again tonight because you guys made it one. Take care of our first responders. Again, I've gotten so many amazing emails and text messages and calls from people that are part of the police force, people that are part of the armed services that appreciate all that we do for them. So thank you guys for taking care of them. They are great people, and they make this country operate. So again, take care of those people, and we appreciate you guys as always. Nevada, we were going through our potential topics tonight. There's a lot of recruiting stuff going on, obviously, with David Sanders, with Jakeem Stewart, a lot of big-time dudes. But Pete Thamel came out with a very, very interesting text today, or a tweet, excuse me, where he said, from the D1 Council, moving forward, schools and individuals can earn exemplary cooperation during an infraction case by doing any of the following: volunteering all pertinent school. I'm going to toss this up on the screen right now so you guys have a little visual. Volunteering all pertinent school and personal information, identifying individuals that are interviewed to be whom the enforcement staff could be otherwise unaware, expanding financial dedication to personnel, unfettered access to information to expedite the gathering of information, taking sufficient action to address violations through self-imposed penalties or proposing meaningful corrective measures, and then recognizing and bringing to the attention of the enforcement staff violations related to the investigation about which the enforcement staff might otherwise be unaware. Michigan did none of these. Michigan basically threw up, they were like Stone Cold Steve Austin. They threw the double middle fingers, which again, when you're, being nailed to the cross like Michigan's about to be, the best thing you can do is cooperate, plead for mercy. And again, Arizona State did that, and they got smacked with a major violation. They got basically sanctioned into purgatory for a while. How does this bode for Michigan? Because Michigan, Connor Stalions didn't cooperate, Jim Harbaugh didn't cooperate, their entire coaching staff left, didn't cooperate. What are your thoughts on this? Because I thought this was a pretty seismic deal for Michigan, and I know that Michigan folks who aren't very smart and the beat writers oh, nothing's going to happen. But I'm like, this is literally the opposite of what Michigan did. Because to me, if I was the athletic director or the head coach at Michigan, I'd be like, guys, look, just, confess, beg for mercy, pray for forgiveness, whatever, as opposed to doing what Michigan did, where they said, oh, we did nothing wrong, we're not going to narc, whatever. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I had gotten a heads up about 24 hours ago from one of my NCAA sources that said something was going to come out relating to Michigan. Didn't know what it was, didn't know exactly how it tied together in terms of what the connection was. But this, when you read this, think Michigan. This is all about Michigan for the D1 Council. This is about drawing a bright line between cooperators and non-cooperators. And they're saying if you cooperate, we're willing to reduce the infractions from a level 1 severe to a level 1 mitigated. We'll do other things. We'll consider not including postseason bans. And as you said, everything they've talked about, Michigan did the opposite. In fact, Partridge was fired for impeding the investigation, for hiding evidence, for telling people not to cooperate with the NCAA investigation. So this is all about Michigan. When Michigan gets hit with the postseason ban, they want to be able to point to this and say, hey, look, had they cooperated, this is what would have happened. Had they been, a good partner with the NCAA, had they been forthright, this is how they could have mitigated the damage. But because they didn't, this is why they're vacating wins. This is why there's a significant fine. This is why there's scholarship reductions. This is why there's a show cause. This is why there's a postseason ban. all those things. I mean, again, read this. If you read this in the light of, wow, I wonder had Michigan done this, what this would be, then it makes sense. Otherwise, you're kind of going, man, why did they come out with this now? This doesn't really make any sense. The NCAA never does stuff like this without a reason. The reason was Michigan. They wanted people to understand the difference between schools that cooperate, as you mentioned, like in Arizona State, who still took Arizona State self-imposed a postseason ban uh, for stuff that isn't 1/10 as bad as what Michigan's going to have. I'm not sure if 1/10 is there, maybe 1/50th. I mean, Michigan stuff is bad, really, really, really bad. And I think today this was so. If you're a Michigan fan, this release from the NCAA is so ominous and so overboard. It's foreshadowing doom for Michigan. And I think in light of the Michigan, try to spin last week where they planted the story about, oh, it's all over. We're going to get an apology and we're going to get a win. They're going to add extra wins to our thing and give us 4 championships and an automatic seeding. No, none of that's true. They're about to get hammered. This was the latest salvo in it. If you needed any further evidence of what's going to happen, just read the thing today. It talks about repeat offenders. I mean, it literally is tailored specifically to Michigan, who's a repeat offender, who's a school that's demonstrated a lack of contrition and a lack of institutional control. And those schools merit the harshest penalties that the NCAA has to have, and that's what Michigan's going to get. They're going to get the harshest penalties. But today is literally a roadmap for how and why it's going to happen.
I agree. So I threw up Arizona State. So Arizona State got smacked pretty hard. Recruiting violations, Herm Edwards era. Antonio Pierce, skated, went to the National Football League, is now the head coach of the Raiders. He was the linebackers coach for Josh McDaniels. But again, you can read it easy. Arizona State and 4 individuals who previously worked for the school's football program, which again, why did all the Michigan people leave Michigan? Because they can say they previously worked there, have reached an agreement with the NCAA enforcement staff on recruiting violations that occurred during COVID. But if you go down a couple lines to, you'll see the initial quotes. Nevada, Arizona State's cooperation throughout the investigation and processing of this case was exemplary, which is incredible. If you guys don't have deep vocabularies like a lot of our opponents and a lot of the people that don't subscribe to Buckeye Scoop don't have. And the cooperation began with the leadership shown by the university president. So the university president for Arizona State was not like tweeting bet and you bet and we're going to sign Jim Harbaugh to an extension. It was actually the opposite. He was like, hey, we're going to clean house and get this all squared up and whatever. The school's acceptance of responsibility and decision to self-impose meaningful core penalties is a model for all schools to follow and is consistent with the expectations of the NCAA infraction program. So again, like they couldn't have done more than they did. And again, this is read on ncaa.org. This isn't on buckeyescoop.com. This isn't, us, reading hieroglyphics. This is literally, hey, this is what they did. This is how they cooperate. This is the president, the athletic director. They fired, Herm Edwards. They got rid of the guys that are all involved. And, they got smacked pretty hard. And guess what? All of a sudden, people that are like, well, Michigan's not going to get smoked with anything. I'm like, well, these guys, the agreed upon penalties in this case includes 4 years of probation for Arizona State, a fine, a self-imposed postseason ban for the 2023 football season, vacating the records for contests in which ineligible student athletes competed, scholarship reductions, and recruiting restrictions in alignment with the level 1 mitigated classifications for the school. So again, I know people are backstroking in the tears of the Michigan fans, but I'm like, look, this is what happened to Arizona State. Arizona State literally in this document said exemplary cooperation, and Michigan was literally the opposite. Like Jim Harbaugh didn't cooperate, Connor Stalions didn't cooperate. They fired the linebackers coach. So Nevada, again, I know people are really bad at reading tea leaves, but we're not. What do you think this means for Michigan? Because, again, Arizona State when they realized that they were like cooked, when they were getting, the execution, they literally said, "Here's everything. Here's all the documents. We know that we screwed up. We know that we did wrong. We're gonna cooperate to the fullest and beg for mercy." And they still got smacked exceptionally hard. What does this mean for Michigan?
Well, let me just, I'll modify one thing you said. You talk about like tea leaves. Like, you don't have to read tea leaves. I mean, like you said, it's all there in black and white on NCAA.org. And, when you contrast the Arizona State penalties and what happened, and again, I think the tweet today by Thamel and the announcement from the NCAA today about exemplary cooperation, again, it dovetails perfectly with trying to highlight between two different investigations. One with Arizona State, where they went from level 1 to level 1 mitigated because of exemplary cooperation. And because of that, they only got 10-year show causes, 4 years of probation, vacated wins, scholarship reductions. I mean, and a postseason ban. That's under mitigated. And then you go to Michigan, where they flip them off, they fight them every step of the way, and they're a repeat offender, and they're a lack of institutional control. So it's like, I mean, it is it's bad. I mean, it's bad, and it's going to be bad. We've always known it was going to be bad, but you see how the NCAA is positioning today. Today's announcement was super important. If you take your time, go back and read. The thing will only take you a couple of minutes to read. It's all online, but they talk about increased fines. They have the ability to fine up to 10% of your athletic budget. And you might say, well, it's only money, who matters? But man, stuff like that hurts. And that's a way to hurt these schools is financially. And the NCAA doesn't have any trouble doing that. And, if you're talking about fines, vacated wins, postseason bans, scholarship reductions, show causes, I mean, that's about as bad as it gets. And I think the NCAA right now really doesn't want. I think they really don't want to do postseason bans, and they're really holding them for the most egregious cases. And I think the Michigan case is like the most egregious case because it was the worst possible type of cheating, worst possible type of violation, and a complete lack of cooperation for the school, and doing it as a repeat offender. So I mean, I don't even like I said. I think you have to go back to SMU to really find anything quite like this, and I think this is worse than SMU because this was multi-year. This was not paying guys. Everybody's paid players. This was directly cheating on the field in real time and scouting future, but scouting not only Big Ten opponents, future potential college football playoff opponents. I mean, it was bad, and it's going to be bad. But today's like I said, if you're a Michigan fan and you read that announcement today, you've got to it's got to send a shiver down your spine because they're coming for you, and it's probably coming sooner than later.
Do you think that Michigan fans realize that, or are they just too stupid to realize like what something like that means? Because again, I'm the biggest beg for forgiveness guy in the world because I'm just saying like if you screwed up that bad, again, if you have Connor Stalions on the sideline and he's employed by you and he's a member of the football program and he's wearing Central Michigan gear on a Friday night on Fox, nationally televised, Central Michigan at Michigan State, and he's like, I don't know how you skate on that. I really don't. And again, I think that the NCAA, these enforcement committee guys, like they're the top compliance guys in the country in general. And they're not there to cut deals and be friendly. They're trying to, make sure that their views heard and that they're like, hey, I'm hearing this case, and they're not going to go soft on somebody just because they're friends or they can cut deals. I mean, again, this was the most insanely egregious thing I've ever seen. Because again, I've been Connor Stalions. I've been a low level staffer at Ohio State when I was a graduate assistant making peanuts. And for me to say, hey, coach, I'm going to leave, not be with the team today. I'm going to drive, a couple hours or an hour and a half or whatever. I'm going to go stand on the sideline at an opponent who's playing against our rival, which again Michigan State is Michigan's biggest rival outside of Ohio State. But I mean they're almost like 1A and 1B because I mean those guys really hate each other, and for a coach to sign off of that, that's the thing that kills me is people are like, well, none of the coaches could have ever known that. I'm like, dude, like when you're Connor's, I mean, Connor was making 50, 60 grand a year. And for you to say, hey, I'm cutting out of all the meetings, I'm cutting out of team dinner, cutting out of the hotel routine that we do, the pre walkthrough that we do that night, I'm cutting out of all it to go to East Lansing and be at Spartan Stadium. And my buddy who I met at our camp is gonna give me a credential and give me a T-shirt, and I can say that like that's crazy, because again, you can talk all whatever you want about the stringers taking videos or whatever, but like he did that last year, week one or whatever it was, and that is enough to get smoked. Because if you have the balls to do that, and again, somebody at Michigan approved that because you can't just go on the lam when you're a support staff guy and say, hey, like I could have gone in 2012 and said, hey, Coach Meyer, I know that we're playing Miami this week, but we play Central Florida next week or whatever. And I'm going to go, they're playing Toledo this week, and I'm going to head up to Toledo and watch it. Like, he'd be like, you can't do that. Like, you're crazy. You're gonna get us whacked and whatever. Because again, that's a known penalty. Because otherwise, like if that was legal, everybody in the world would have two or three coaches go to every other advanced game like they do in high school, like they do in the NFL. But in college, that's totally illegal. And that's what like these Michigan fans who are impossibly stupid or like, oh, they're going to skate on this. I'm like, well, go listen to what Rob Petitti said. Go listen to what James Franklin said. Go listen to what Greg Schiano said, let alone, I mean, Ryan Day, people will say, well, he's a crybaby because he lost Michigan. But I'm like, listen to all these other coaches. Listen to all these other athletic directors. I mean, Gene Smith, I mean, say whatever you want about it, but he said, wins should be vacated, asterisk next to the championship. So again, people with brains know what this meant to Michigan to have that edge. And I think that it's something where when these guys get smacked, there's going to be like a joint celebration between everybody else in the Big Ten, the athletic directors, not just the coaches that are still there, but the coaches that lost their jobs because Michigan was cheating and beat them, and athletic directors made moves on them or head coaches made moves on them because they weren't up to snuff. So this will be fascinating. This will be one of the greatest victories by the NCAA. I mean, they have a chance to make a real statement here because if you're not going to cooperate, and again, we just read the statement with Arizona State, exemplary cooperation, did everything the right way, turned everything over. Here's all the evidence. Here's all the scripts we did. Please, God, have mercy on us. Michigan did the exact opposite. They said, we're not cooperating. And again, you saw like USC did the same thing with Reggie Bush and the Heisman. They locked the doors. They shut down the filing cabinets. They didn't let those guys in, and they got smashed by the NCAA. And that's where Michigan's heading to. I'm telling you, it's going to be gorgeous, and I can't wait for it. Nevada, any thoughts before we dig into some super chats?
No, I think for the NCAA, you make an excellent point. I mean, this is a big moment for them, and they're fighting for relevance right now. People are saying they're irrelevant. What's their function? Why are they around? The Big Ten and the SEC should get together and self-govern. And the NCAA realizes like that one of their only meaningful roles that are left for them, because it used to be negotiator of contracts, arbiter of eligibility and things like that. But it's really enforcer of the rules. That's the only role that they have that's meaningful. That's meaningful to these colleges. And now they've got thrown in their lap the case of their life. This is like a RICO case for John Gotti times 20, and they don't want to blow it. They want to take their time. They want to get this thing right. They want to not only win on the case, but they want to win over on the court of public opinion. And today's salvo was as much for the court of public opinion as for anything else, because they want people to understand that one of the reasons why Michigan is getting hammered so badly is because they didn't cooperate, and that there's actually benefits to cooperating. It's not like like you're watching like the first 48, and the guy's like, "Tell us what you know, and we'll go easy on you." And the guy tells him what he knows, and then he goes to jail for the rest of his life. And you're like, man, that didn't work out very well for you, did it? You know, the NCAA is actually saying, hey, if you cooperate, we will have a path in place that this actually mitigates your penalties. There is a reward for you telling the truth. You know, your punishment is not as bad. You're still going to get punished, but it's not as bad as it would have been had you tried to lie about it. And this is all about Michigan, who tried to do it the other way. And sometimes you get the bull, sometimes you get the horn, and they're going to get the horn, and they're going to get it. They're going to get it badly. And, to, and today, like I said, today was big. Don't miss this. This was not a small thing today. Today was big, and for Michigan, it was big bad news.
Like, I love you to death, but it's like you said, sometimes you get the bull, sometimes you get the horn. I'm like, look, like Sammy the Bull Gravano, who is one of the biggest rats testifiers of all time, like, he walks around on the street today after he murdered dozens of people, but he ratted on John Gotti, he ratted on the mob, like, gave him up. So again, like, a lot of people act hard until they're facing life in the can. And again, it's not that serious with college athletics, but if you're an athletic director and you're trying to save your job, you can at least, like, if I'm an AD and I find out my coach has been cheating, he's gonna get fired no matter what. And Jim Harbaugh didn't have to get fired. He left willingly to go to LA to skate on the charges. So if I'm Ward Manuel, man, I'm just like, guys, anybody who's left in Schembechler Hall, tell them everything you know, and we'll just eat the turd for 2-3 years of probation and bowl bans and whatever, and we'll survive. As opposed to, I know nothing. I never saw nothing. None of the coaches, because again, like I've talked to media people who've been in the industry for 40 years, beat writers who I used to respect, who aren't very smart. They were just like, oh, well, this guy said that nothing's going to happen to Michigan. I'm like, in what universe do you think that you could cheat, get caught red-handed, and that'll be okay? Because again, if you have a brain, look what happened with the Patriots, Spygate. Look what happened to the Denver Broncos. When Josh McDaniels went to Denver, he did the same thing as Spygate. He got smoked. The Patriots got a huge fine, lost a first-round pick, permanent stain on their legacy of all the stuff that they did. Again, I think that people, they can't see the forest from the trees when they're talking about, well, nothing's going to happen to Michigan because everybody's gone and Connor Stalions is gone. But I'm like, if Connor Stalions wanted to be like a good Michigan man, which he dreamed of being a Michigan man, he's like a psychopath. Like, he's like the Ted Kaczynski of Michigan football. He would have sat there and said, guys, this is what I did. Sorry I did it. It was wrong. This is the manual. This is all the film that I took from my iPhone. And here's all the receipts from all the games that I bought. And this is, Big Benny or whoever his big donor was that cut the checks. I mean, he was making 35, 40 grand a year. Like, I mean, he was spending double that just in tickets for premium games, low level, where he could get the signals filmed. So he'd sit there and say, guys, here's all my receipts. Here's all the film. Here's my iCloud login. Download everything. I apologize. Love you guys. I know that I'm going to get a perma ban from college football, but, lay easy on my boys at Michigan. They didn't know what I was doing, but they did the opposite. They said, I'm not narking. I'm not talking. I'm not going to be in football anymore. I'm not going to coach anymore. And Harbaugh and his staff just said, I'm just going to the NFL. So if someone is going to snag me, it's going to be Roger Goodell. And it's going to be, if he feels like, smoking somebody the way he smoked Jim Tressel. I mean, Jim Tressel went to be, kind of an associate with the Colts, got, penalized for like 7 or 9 games or whatever it was. But yeah, it's going to be really fascinating. Nevada, any final thoughts? We'll dig into these super chats and got some potential commitment news coming too.
No, I just like I said, I love watching Michigan squirm, and the fact that they don't think that they're going to, the fact that they haven't gotten to the point yet of acceptance just makes this ever so sweet, because a normal person would at least look at all this and the totality of everything and go, yeah, we're going to get smacked. But they're still living in this la la land and trying to put out this, so they're trying to convince themselves of the lie. And that just makes it even that much more beautiful. So I can't wait for this all to come down.
Well, my thing is like, it's like when me and you have disagreements, which we do sometimes, not often. But if I said Nevada, Michigan is going to smoke Ohio State this year on the field, it's going to be bloody. It's going to be in the horseshoe. They're going to destroy Ohio State. I don't care about Jack Story or Trey Henderson, whatever. You would say, Kirk, okay, if you're that smart and you're that wise and you know what's going on, put your money where your mouth is. Get your checkbook out. Get your cash out. Let's put it in escrow. Let's place a bet. And I'd be like, oh no, I ain't doing that. I ain't that confident. But that's what Michigan's beat writers are. That's what their moron fans are. Because you're the Benny Binion of the Ohio State of the Michigan scandal. Like you're like whatever you want to place. It's like what's your limit today? Whatever your first bet is. You want to bet $1 million on a hand of blackjack. Whatever your first bet is, we'll cover it. You're the Benny Binion of the Michigan scandal. It's like you guys. I'm your Huckleberry. I'm your Benny Binion. You guys want to bet 50 grand, 500 grand, $5 million that Michigan's not going to get smoked. Like Nevada is your Huckleberry. And again, I'm not trying to put you out there, but that's kind of what it is. So like if I was ultra confident on something and you're like, Kirk, well, I feel the opposite, put your money up. I'd either be like, okay, let's ride, or, I'm not about that life. But the Michigan media, who are the dumbest human beings in the world outside of the Ohio State media, they are not about that life. And so like, that's why I call you, I was like, I watched the Benny Binion autobiography today, and I was like, that's like Nevada. He's like, well, where's the money at? All you guys that are so confident that they're not getting smoked and they're going to skate and nothing's going to happen. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, the problem with when you deal with somebody who's named Nevadabuck is he grew up in Las Vegas. So like, if you've got balls and you've got a take, like he'll take your action. Now he's going to want you to pay when you lose your action because that's just how he was raised. But Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? I called you the Benny Binion of the Michigan scandal because Benny Binion is like legend, God bless his soul, who like, if you wanted to bet something, he's like, whatever your first bet is your limit. So if you want to go bet $1 million, you can do it on your first hand of blackjack or whatever. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the problem is, I think if the Michigan beat like pooled all the resources, you could buy like a case of Fig Newtons or something like that. So, yeah, I'm not hopeful that I'm going to get any meaningful action on this or anything because I know this is about as deadlock a cinch as you get. It's already been preordained. It's already been written, man. It's like the game's already been played. You know the score, and we're just waiting for this thing to be published. But the Tony Petitti letter laid it all out. It's game over. So like I said, I will take action. I'm not going to get any action, and no, you can't. You're not going to pay in like Confederate money or any like the Ecuadorian dollars from 1973 or something like that. No, I want not any of your Sam Webb tokens on the ETF thing or something like that. I want like real money. Okay, and but if you have money, you know how to get a hold of Nevadabuck, and we'll get something together.
No Dollar General gift cards. No.
No, I don't want that.
Nevada, Trajan Odom looks like he's about to be a Buckeye. Larry Johnson is going ham right now. 6'4", 285, 4-star kid, top 15-ish D lineman in the country. Tosses Feldman, but people were ready to bury Larry last year, and he is on a heater right now, which I'm really excited about. This kid's a great looking 3 technique. What are your thoughts on Trajan Odom? I'm Tassis Feldman. But LJ is a guy who was buried, left for dead. They wanted to hire QCs and GAs to replace him, but I looked up the salaries last night. Like LJ made 1.1 million last year as a D-line coach. And I'm like, I know everybody wants him to retire, but I'm like, that's a good life. I mean, when you're coaching Jack Sawyer, JT, he doesn't have a lot of problems when you're coaching sets. It's a lot like Jim Haycock. Like Jim Haycock, when he was done at Ohio State, he got offered a lot of jobs, but not all jobs are created equal when you're coaching college football. Like if you're coaching at, he got offered D-line at Kentucky, which is, it's a good job, but it's not like coaching D-line at LSU or Bama or Texas or Ohio State. Because like you're going to be going against guys that are as good, if not way better than you, and it makes your life way harder. But when you're coaching, like, coaching defensive linemen at LSU is probably the easiest job in sports because you're always going to have mutant monster guys that are just beasts. But what are your thoughts on this? Because I think this is it's interesting. He's about to jump in the fold, and Larry's like cleaning up right now in recruiting. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we're in on so many guys. For me, it was just a question of who we had room for, and I mean, I think it literally is first come first served. And look, the some of the Michigan fans are trying to present it like they're in that position too, and it's like, man, Odom would be better than any recruit in their class. So this would be a big get. Larry continues on a roll, but Ohio State recruiting is just on such a heater right now. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I can't keep track of all these guys that we're in on, that we're trending for, that are heavy leans to Ohio State. Um, Ohio State is the now program, on both sides of the ball. But defensively, I mean, the next 3 or 4 recruits could all be like premier defensive recruits on top of an already outstanding defensive class. So this would be a big get. This would be a foundational piece. Can't have enough of those big defensive linemen. But wow, just the hits keep on coming for Ohio State.
Do you think LJ is done? Because there are people in the Woody Hayes and there are people in the media who both aren't very smart and they're not very good at what they do, who thought that he was done. And I was like, think about LJ is when he gets in a situation where he gets to recruit with the parents, with the pedigree. Like, I mean, if my kid was some sort of superstar defensive lineman, he's the only guy I'm sending them to. Because I've known Larry for almost 30 years now. And I think that he is as good as there is. And again, ask Joey Bosa, ask Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Draymond Jones, Devon Hamilton, Tamba Hali. I mean, he's got Jimmy Kennedy. I mean, just this laundry list of guys that have made fortunes after playing for him as first-round picks in the National Football League. So I don't know what else you would ever want. What are your thoughts on LJ? Because again, I think he's got a lot of gas in the tank. And again, he was a high school coach for a long time. High school coaches don't generally get paid like a huge amount of money, and he's making, over $1 million a year as a position coach, which is substantial and amazing. And his son's on the staff. So, how long of a runway do you think LJ has with Ohio State, Nevada?
Well, I think he's got a long road, and I think he's obviously got a lot of gas left in the tank right now. And for Ohio State, it's like Larry Chilton. What is he going to do? He's not going to go down and retire. He's not going to go to the retirement village. He's not going to go and just play Xbox or NHL 3, whatever. I mean, he's a football coach. And football, I mean, Dick LeBeau did it until it was like darn near 90 or 80 or whatever the heck it was and looked good doing it. I mean, Larry, as long as Larry can coach, and I think with these rules now about adding additional coaches and kind of guys that can kind of help out with the on-field coaching, I think that's going to extend his lifespan. And I think Larry Johnson and the Larry Johnson will keep coaching longer and longer because he's going to have even more people to help him in terms of doing his job. And I think that's great for Ohio State. And it's great for Larry Johnson because he can get some help. He can have some additional, you can have a Leon Clark and some other guys help out with the defensive linemen. Yep. And I think it's great for a guy like Larry that's getting up there, but still got a lot of gas in the tank.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's an excellent point. When you've got these young guns who can go out and, pound the pavement a little bit, it's like, because when you've got like Jakeem Stewart, who's probably the best defensive tackle in the country, he might reclassify to 2025. You can say, well, how long is Coach Johnson going to be there? It's like, well, if I'm LJ and I'm making $1 million a year, I'm saying as long as they'll have me. And with the new rule where you can have, basically infinite coaches, he can find a young coach like Leon Clark. He can find successors. I mean, again, if they had this in January, we might have spent a lot of money on Jason Taylor because that was the big hot rumor was, were we going to go spend a fortune to get Jason Taylor to come up here or hire James Laurinaitis? And, it's funny, all of the rigmarole and the conundrums that went on when they were debating if they should hire James as a full-time coach or leave him as a GA, where he was making, again, he was making $200,000 to GA. So don't crack for me, Argentina. That's way more than the old buddies made, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But James wanted to go on the road, and it's funny. All of the things that he was stressing about are now alleviated, where you can send any 11 coaches on the road that you haven't played. So if Larry wants to stay home and play shuffleboard in New Albany or whatever, he can send Lee Allen Clark on the road and send him down to Georgia or Atlanta or whatever. And the thing that'll be very interesting to me is, like, do you hire coaches who have dedicated ties to, like the most fertile fishing holes in the country for recruiting? If I got some guy who's just an ace in Peachtree, Georgia, or South Florida, he knows all the Chaminade guys, and do you hire him and send him down there and say, hey, wear this Ohio State polo, we'll send you down there, you can go to like 3 games on the weekend and chill? Like, that'll be fascinating to see how they, because if someone's got deep ties to coaches and players and youth league, Optimist League, whatever, that could be kind of a silver bullet for the major programs. Because again, this isn't applied to the minor leagues, Akron, Kent, Miami of Ohio, Toledo. But if you're Ohio State and you can say, hey, we're going to hire this guy, pay him $75,000 a year to be our South Florida guy, and he's down there all the time, and he lives down there and whatever, and he's on our payroll, like, why not? So this will be a fascinating case study going forward. Nevada, we got a bunch of super chats. Any other thoughts before we start digging into these?
No, I think it'll be interesting. You said about the recruiting thing. Like, if you can pick a different, you have a defensive recruit, can you send down 7 of your 2 countable 10, and then 5 analysts? They're down there 1 week, and then the next day they come back and you send 7 offensive guys to some. I mean, is that how? I mean, can you move it that rapidly?
I mean, that's what I'm not 1,000,000% sure if you can like pass waivers or if you just dedicate guys each day. I'm not sure. I mean, I'd be lying, but I know like last year when we lost the coach, like James Laurinaitis went on the road as a GA, they passed a waiver. So I don't know what the system is now, but that'll be fascinating, because again, if you've got somebody who's got deep ties to Louisiana, Bama, Texas, South Florida, Carolina, where we get a lot of these guys, like, that could be kind of like a silver bullet when you're sending guys down that they know the coaches, they know the players, they've got a reputation, and it goes really well. And again, it's not totally pie in the sky, but how long until some of the big time 7-on-7 coaches get hired by major programs? Pay them $50,000 a year. Hey, you're already down in Miami. You're already down in, Naples, wherever, where these kids are, mostly Miami, Texas, whatever. And, go to the games, wear the polo. That was something that was a big deal when I played, is that they passed a deal where, quality control coaches could go to high school games. You had to have there was very rigid deals where if you're going to a high school game ahead because your kid's playing in it, or you have a direct tie through blood to go to a game, if it's not like a regular standard recruiting day. So, because what a lot of the SEC schools, because the SEC schools are the best because they always figure out ways to modify loopholes and get through things. They would send quality control coaches or just student assistants in like LSU polos to go watch warm-ups of like 5-star kids, so that those kids would be like, oh wow, LSU sent 2 coaches to come watch me, not knowing that they were just little Geppettos that were there to show kind of their strength in numbers. So it's going to be really fascinating, because like I said, this new rule where you can have infinite coaches is going to destroy the small schools. It's going to absolutely empower the major powers to just go out and get these guys and go hire guys for not necessarily merit as much as connections. And hey, I know this kid's, is a 5-star and this is his dad. You could hire him to be a recruiting analyst or expert or whatever. So I'm excited for it because, like I said, I think Ohio State will benefit big time. It's my thought. Nevada, let's get into some of these super chats. Zeke, thank you for the 5. I'm hearing Odom, Maxwell Roy, Autry, Stewart for the DT room. Also, Riley Pettijohn has been crystal ball to Ohio State. See you at the top. Love you both, Nevada OH. Thoughts on that, man? Because I know Riley Pettijohn is the top linebacker on the board for the Bucks. He is a very, very good player, and he's a guy that is a cornerstone for that linebacker room. And if there's one guy I know that can close, it's James Laurinaitis, who is as good as it gets. And again, if you're a linebacker and you're not playing for James, I think you're an absolute moron because he is as intellectual and as talented of a coach as there is in the country. I think eventually he'll be the head coach at Ohio State just because of his makeup, his demeanor, his toughness, his upside, the whole 9 yards. So buy stock in James Laurinaitis today if you can, and you'll be a very, very rich Buckeye fan in the future. Nevada, again, Zeke, I appreciate you for the 5, says, he said Odom, which we heard as well. Maxwell Roy is also in the boat. Autry, I think there's a lot of good momentum there. Jakeem, if we get those guys, that's the greatest defensive tackle class in the history, probably best D-line class in the history of Ohio State for the DT room, as long as Riley Pettijohn is the crystal ball to Ohio State. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, then you got to add Justin Hill and Dorian Brew to that group right there. And it's like, that's what when I was talking about the embarrassment of riches for Ohio State, especially defensively, that's what I'm talking about. And, what Autry and Stewart, that is a little bit of fanciful thinking. The other 4 aren't. The other 4 are, I won't say, I hate to use the dreaded lock word, but Ohio State thinks they're getting those guys. And those guys are strongly leaning to Ohio State. I think Ohio State's in a great spot with all of them. Or I should say the other 5 guys, including Pettijohn. It's kind of crazy. Like you think any one of those guys would make for like a great podcast or a great topic or a great thing. The fact that you've got 6 or 7 of these type of premier names, that's elite recruiting. That's red hot recruiting. Red hot recruiting is not getting 3 and 4 star guys and little guys here and little guys there and beating out Syracuse or somebody. This is red hot recruiting. This is what Ohio State's doing. And it's funny how defensively, the rap was on Knowles was, oh, we can't recruit. Knowles can't recruit. Well, somebody's recruiting well over there on the defensive side because we're cranking in the talent right now. And we could about to go on a little mini tear here the next 2-3 weeks. And as an Ohio State fan, buckle up because it's about to get real good.
Totally agree. Chris S., thank you for the 20. Appreciate you, brother. Great show. Watching from Tampa. I'm supposed to go down to Tampa in the next few weeks. I love Tampa. Grew up in Naples, so God bless my Florida boys that are down there. I've noticed Coach Tressel. This is a great question because I've gotten this a lot over the last 2 weeks. Coach Tressel's around the program lately. I do not remember him coming around when Coach Meyer was there. Is there a, quote, rift between the two? Well, here's the deal, and I'll say this very clearly and accurately, and Jim Tressel is going to be on the SWO pretty quick here. I was talking to him today. He was like really, 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 really busy over the last, 14 years since he resigned at Ohio State. He worked for the Colts for a couple years, wanted the head job. Jim Irsay's a moron and didn't hire him. And then he went to Akron as a associate president. Then he went to Youngstown State as the actual president. So, he didn't have time to come down here and screw around at the Woody Hayes and evaluate the punt team and the recruiting and whatever. But he's retired now. He retired from Youngstown State, left it in tremendous shape from a fundraising perspective. He's the greatest fundraiser in the history of Youngstown State. They should name the stadium after him. But I don't think there's a rift between. Obviously, Urban, and you have to understand, I love Urban Meyer. I love Shelly Meyer. I love Nikki Meyer. I love Gigi. I love Nate. I know the whole family. I've known Nate since he was a little 7th grader. But I think that there was probably a little bit of a chill there, just because it was Meyer, he whooped us bad in '06, and then Tress got thrown out on his head, which I thought was ridiculous, and I've never forgiven Ohio State for how they treated Jim Tressel. Um, but I think that it was more that Tress was just busy. I mean, people can say, "Oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that," but I'm like, dude, he was the president of a humongous university in Youngstown State, where you have to, when you're a president, man, I mean, you're fundraising, you're delegating work between your people, you're trying to, um, fight. I mean, I talked to Tress ad nauseum about his life as an academic, and it's like, you have to fight between departments who think, like the band director wants new equipment versus the history department wants a new facility, or I mean, it's like you have to legislate all this stuff, and it's exhausting. So he didn't have time to just come down here and chill at the Woody Hayes and drink McDonald's coffee and see what's going on, and give his his references to Urban. So I don't think that there's like a major rift there. I just think that those guys, like if you work like Truss did, as he's working 18 hours a day as a president of a university, because if Truss takes the job as the president of Youngstown State, he's not doing it as some ceremonial position, working 6 hours a day. He's doing it as like as like he's the first president in the history of the world, and he's going to work 18 hours a day and go to every fundraiser and every donor event and every sorority event and fraternity event and football event and softball game, and so it's exhausting. So I think that now that he's retired, he's got a little bit of time on his hands to spend time with Ryan. He's got a house up in Akron. He's got a house down in Siesta Key. So I don't think it's a rift. Even though people have said that, you're like, where's Urban? Where's Trust? I'm like, well, Urban works for Fox now, and he's working a decent amount of time in the in season. He's down in Florida now with Shells, and I don't know. I think that like when you're retired and you're trying to find stuff to do to stay active and try to spend because your Trust and Ryan and Urban and Luke Fickle and John Cooper, they're the only living people that have ever sat in the chair of being the big duck, the head duck at Ohio State. And I think Trust, inherently wants to improve the position and share wisdom that he wishes he would have known when he was in that chair with Ryan. Because again, Trust is the greatest human being I've ever been around, and he wants everybody to succeed, and he wants to help you as much as he can, because that's just how he's wired. Like he has great joy in seeing you be successful. He has great joy in seeing you do great things, being a great family person, great husband, great to your kids and great to your wife, whatever. And again, I've gone to, when he was president, I went to at least one game a year at Youngstown State. I went to his Hall of Fame induction. I talked to him every few weeks. He's going to come on the show in the next 2-3 weeks. I talked to him yesterday about it. So he's the best there is. So he's trying to make sure that Ryan has as much help and guidance as possible, because he's just a great person, and he wants to make sure that Ryan, can kind of navigate the political mess that is Ohio State football. Because, Ryan Day's biggest problem is he doesn't have very many smart people around him. Again, I've audited that entire building at Woody Hayes, and there's a lot of people that don't deserve to be there. There's a lot of people that are dumb, and they're worthless. And so I think Trust realizes that, and he's trying to help him to keep his job and keep building the program. Nevada, your thoughts? Chris asked, again, a fantastic question. Thank you for the 20. Great show. Watching from Tampa. God bless Tampa. God bless Steve Swindoll, who's the GOAT in Tampa, Nevada's boy. I've noticed Coach Tressel around the program lately. I do not remember him coming around when Coach Meyer was there. Is there a rift between the two? What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I think that people have to remember. I think your point about Tressel being busy is, I mean, it seems kind of elementary, but very factual and very true. Second thing is, I mean, let's just be real. Urban Meyer didn't really need to have Tressel around the program. I mean, Urban Meyer's Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's multiple national championships, on the pantheon of great coaches. A guy's going to be in the Mount Rushmore of college coaches for no matter who's ever picking the names up there. Whereas Ryan Day's he's a new head coach. He had never been a head coach before he got the job here at Ohio State. So he needs the help, and he needed the help. And I think for Ryan, it's been kind of an evolution that we've kind of seen where he's gone from play caller to now he stepped back. He's more of a CEO. He's got competent coordinators. He brought in Chip Kelly. And now he's going outside for help from other people that can give him help and then have time to do that same help for him. So I think it's more of a circumstance of Ryan really needing the help and Trust being available to do it as opposed to Urban Meyer, who frankly didn't really need the help. I mean, Urban had a very strong idea of how he wanted to do things. And that's not, I mean, I don't want that to come across like Urban felt like he didn't need anything, but I mean, he's Urban Meyer. I mean, when you're perfectly competent in terms of doing your job and you're completely, confident in your abilities, you're generally not looking outside much for, because frankly, at that point, people can only come in and muck it up by saying something or doing something that's not the way you want it done. And Urban's very particular about the way he wants things done. It's kind of like when he's recruiting, he asks for all the people that bring in recruits to tell him the name of the recruit. Because one time this guy brought in a recruit, didn't tell him the name, and he called him the wrong name the whole time. And they blamed that guy and ended up firing that guy at some point, or somehow that guy's no longer with the program. But that was a bad story. It was, I think this guy was Ethan Posick. I think it was.
So I got 86 forever because I didn't do that. You are not allowed to be credentialed anymore because you screwed that up.
You're not allowed. Oh,
we're gonna let every fat doughboy in the world be credentialed, but not you. I think that's a great point because Tress and Urban came up way different from Ryan. Ryan showed up, took over a program that was on a monorail to success with Mickey and Volt and Pantone and all the other whatevers, but like Urban had to cut his teeth at Colorado State, and he had to cut it at Notre Dame, and then he had to cut it as a head coach at Bowling Green, who stunk. Then he went, obviously, to Utah, who stunk. Then he went to Florida, who was average before he got there. He turned them into a juggernaut. So Tress is kind of the same way. Tress started with Youngstown State and won 5 national championships. But like when you're coaching 1AA, man, it's a war every day because you've got kids that they don't qualify. I mean, you have to take some kids that are iffy, to say the least, and he turned them into champions. So I mean, Ryan shows up and he gets Ohio State. So it's like if I was a 16-year-old and you said, Kirk, I want you to drive this Bugatti. Okay, you sure I don't need a Honda Accord or like an F-150 or Camry or whatever? Nope, you're getting this Bugatti. Do the best you can. And there's times where Ryan's like flown off the side of the cliff and like Thelma and Louise and ran into a mountain and died. But Tress is trying to resurrect him and trying to, and Ryan deep down is a good person. He hasn't been a great coach. I think he's been a good coach, but he's choked a lot of games up. And I think that Tress is trying to help him. Like, look, these are some things you need to do. This is how you deal with the media. This is how you deal with the donors. This is how you deal with being the guy, because like when Ryan's walking around the Woody Hayes as an offensive coordinator, like it's cool, but it's different when you're the HC. When you're the head duck, you're the guy. You're the guy that everybody looks at, stares at, needs motivation from. Everybody in that building needs stroked at some point between the coaches, the players, the recruits, the parents, and then you throw in the NIL layer. It's literally exhausting. So Ryan, I think he needs all the help he can get. And Tress is, he's like Yoda, and Ryan is like, Leia Skywalker maybe, and he's trying to make him into like a little bit better of a fighter than he's been. So it'll be very interesting to see how this works out. TK, thank you for the 5. I hope this isn't an indication that the investigation has no end in sight. Well, the thing about all these things is eventually, there has to be an ending. And, with the NCAA, when they assign these huge cases, they usually give them to the top-notch 5-star compliance directors from around the country. And, they make one the chief compliance dude and they invest everything. And, when they're investigating all this stuff, like they have to cite, well, this is why we did this, why we smacked them with this. This is how they acted. This is the precedent. So I think that this thing will be done sooner than later. But I also think that, the compliance officer in charge of it is going to take this seriously because, all of his homies who are compliance officers are watching him. Was he going to be soft on Michigan? Is there nothing that really happened? Or do you smack people that don't cooperate? Because again, I think that, Michigan, what they did was egregious. It was terrible. But the way they acted after they got caught is even worse. When you throw up the double middle fingers and say, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. Like, you guys are dumb. Like, there's no way that we, shouldn't be skating on this. I'm like, guys, like, again, if I was Ward Mano, if I was the athletic director at Michigan, which again, they can't pay me enough and I'm way too handsome for the role, I would say, guys, if you guys took anything, if you guys did anything, if you guys videoed anything, if you guys bought tickets, if Uncle Jimbo reimbursed you for the tickets on Venmo or PayPal or Stripe or Cash or whatever, like, just admit to it. Cop to it. It's game over. It'll be fodder for the media and it'll be fodder for Ohio State fans, but we'll be able to, wash our hands of it way quicker than if you guys just say, oh, we didn't see nothing, we didn't know nothing. That wasn't Connor Stalions at the Michigan State Central Michigan game. Just ignore it all. But that's my opinion. Nevada, TK, again, appreciate you. Thanks for the 5. Says, I hope this isn't an indication that the investigation has no end in sight. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think we're closer to the end than we are the beginning. And as you said, everything, it's got to end sometime. I tried to stay away from time. One of my favorite sayings is timing these things is always dicey because it's just so tough. It's tough enough to get it right, and I know I've got this one right, but it's the timing. All I can say is it will end. It will end someday. My sense is it's sooner than later, but frankly, the longer it goes on, the worse it is for Michigan. Okay. I mean, if there was any chance of this thing being a nothing burger, this thing would have wrapped up really quickly a long time ago. Look at NCAA's history on this stuff. The longer stuff goes, the harsher the penalty. So frankly, as an Ohio State fan, I have to be honest with you. I am rooting for this to go on a long time. I am, because I know that's bad for Michigan, having this sort of Damocles hanging over their head, just waiting for that thing to drop. And I know for a lot of people, they don't feel that way. I think we live in this immediacy world right now where people, if they don't see it right now, they feel like it's not happening, but it's happening. And the longer it goes on, the worse it is for Michigan. So I say, let them drag it out as long as they need to.
Yeah. I mean, because again, it's better, to move slowly, but be correct than it is to, rush and, oh, here's our decision. And we didn't do all the due diligence, but it's like, when you've got electronic paper trails of ticket stubs and transferring of tickets to people and the rest, come on. I think it's absolutely insane at this point. Jim Jackson, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, brother. Burke, 10 plus class of 2026 QBs off the board. None to Ohio State. We have the QB Whisperer and the Power of the Block O. What is the deal? Jim, I hope to see you and your wife on Saturday. I hope you guys show up. My little Seminoles can represent you, and Kim can be like Captain Planet and like touch hands and do the Knoll chant, since you guys are the 2 Seminoles that I know. I honestly don't know. And again, I'm not trying to be, petty or what the word is, but I just don't care about our quarterback recruiting under Ryan Day, because between the guys that we get and the guys that he'll go after in the portal, like, we're always going to have an S tier, top tier quarterback in our room. Again, he could have easily kept Kyle McCord, guaranteed him the job, but he didn't think Kyle was the guy, and goes out, pays Will Howard a fortune to remedy that. And I think that, Ryan, Aaron Nolan slipped up early in his career at Ohio State, and if Air was on point and wasn't screwing up in January, we probably don't go after Julian Sain, but he did. And Julian Sain hit the portal, and Ryan and Bill O'Brien, who was here for, 2 cups of coffee, went all in, and we got Julian Sain. So, I don't sweat the quarterback thing, especially when it's 2 years out, because like, a lot of things can happen. Quarterbacks, quarterback coaches can leave. head coaches can change, NIL money can get brought to the table. It's just, I don't know. Nevada, I want your thoughts on this. Thank you for the 5, Jim. I hope to see you on Saturday as well. 10 plus class of 2026 QBs off the board. None to OSU. We have the QB whisperer and the power of the Blocko. What's the deal? Nevada, do you care about our quarterback recruiting 2 years out?
Yeah, I mean, care. Do I care? Sure. Am I concerned about it? Not even a little bit. Um, I mean, Ohio State's such it's such the brand. I mean, they're choosing not recruiting right now, so it's not like Ohio State is getting beat out for kids that they want. And oh my gosh, what are we gonna do to find a quarterback? I have absolutely zero doubt that they'll end up with the bluest of blue chips. I look at our quarterback room as it's currently configured. Yeah, we've got 5 guys in there right now. It's the deepest quarterback room that I've ever seen. So I know that can change as well in 2 years, but I just have no doubt that they're going to continue to ladle in talent. You've got Tavian St. Clair coming in 2025. So yeah, I'm just not worried. I mean, I don't want to sound silly, but I'm just not worried about it. I'm sure that thing will resolve itself.
And like in the portal era, like you can't waste time on depth because especially quarterback, like as long as you have one that can play, which we will. Again, we have Julian Sane for the next 3 years at minimum. So, I mean, if a kid from 26 doesn't want to come here because we have Julian Sane sitting behind Will Howard, then God bless him. And as soon as that comes open, then Ryan will, open up the coffers and we'll go out and get a superstar. Because again, Ryan was ultra aggressive this offseason in the portal. So I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Nevada, SC Buckeye, I think for the Ultra membership, I think for the Deuce. Merritt smacking a Michigan recruit and trolling. I love that. So there's a Rivals 5-star challenge going on right now, and London Merritt smacked a Michigan kid in a drill that we can't show you because we don't want to get dinged on our copyright because a Rivals reporter posted it. But it's a good little tournament to see who's the biggest dog in the room. And Nevada, I know that we watched that earlier. We talked about it. We didn't want to show it just because we don't want to get dinged. What are your thoughts of that about an Ohio State kid smacking a Michigan kid in a one-on-one pass rush drill? I think it's pretty fun. It's kind of spicy for the offseason, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I try not to read too much into it. As we've talked about how much you're a big fan of these one-on-one with no pad rushing drills. I know you believe this is the ultimate litmus test of who's going to be good and who isn't. I don't agree with that, but I'm gonna take a contrary opinion. But no, I just like the fact that he plays with an edge. Somebody compared him to Darian Scott. It was funny. I think we were talking about Darian Scott either yesterday or the day before on a podcast. Yep. One of my all-time favorite Buckeyes, and he does. When I saw him do it, it reminded me a little bit of Darian, and that made me smile because I just thought he was such a great player. And if we can have anybody that even is remotely close to that, then that's really good news for Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like one-on-one passers, it'd be like if somehow, like, imagine all you guys that are out here listening and women as well. If your like daughter was like a goalie and every single thing that she was judged on was a 5-on-3 power play or a breakaway or a shootout, where she's at a severe disadvantage. It's not 5-on-5. It's not even strength. It's not whatever. But that is the only thing that they care about. They don't care about regular hockey. They care about a skills competition, which is a shootout. Like when they do the shootouts in the NHL games. Like that's what one-on-one pass rush is. And I used to tell guys, I'm like, look, I watch these tackles, and again, if I ran those drills, I'd tell my tackles that are in these one-on-one drills, I'm like, look, I know that you kids have never been taught this, and I know that you kids probably aren't the wisest human beings in the world. But when you guys do a one-on-one pass rush and you have a guard who has a 3 technique and a 3 technique D tackle on his outside shoulder, like, don't just like run out of the drill, because that's what these kids all do. They're all trained, don't get in the way of, Jakeem Stewart or whoever who's on the outside shoulder of the guard. And I'm like, dude, like in a real football play, the tackle is like literally right there. So you can't just run wide upfield and crush this poor guard and throw him into the big pop-up bag and make him look like a douchebag. So I used to do that when I played in the National Football League. I played at Ohio State. Like they would do that stuff, and we'd have some super wide 3 technique, And I would be playing tackle, and I would just stand there. And if they ran into me, I'd be like, "Well, you're an idiot because this is like real football. You can't just bail out of there and run super wide. It's just the most unnatural, inauthentic rep that you could ever get." But it makes the defensive tackles feel good for their egos because they're stupid and they get single digits on their Wonderlicks. But I'm just like, that's real football. And again, when I coach, I tell Jack Muhort, I tell Taylor Decker, I tell Reed Fragel, don't bail out on your guard. And again, if they get mad at you, then tell them to go. I'd exceptionally colorful language. I'd tell them, go do some bad stuff. And again, that's just protecting my guards, because my guards would be in there, hanging in there, and they'd have some douchebag 3 technique, get on the wide outside shoulder, run way wider than they could ever run in real life. And they'd go win and they'd feel special. And the D-line coach would be acting like a douchebag. And I'd say, guys, like, don't kill your guys. Don't hang your guys out to dry, because you have to give them an inauthentic rush in one-on-one pass rush, and give those moron defensive linemen some sort of like a fake cred or fake street cred or fake win or whatever it is. So, but this is me. And again, I know that I'm just different, because I hate when you put guys in bad situations. Because I saw guys that were good players get killed in that drill, and they never recovered. Mentally, they were beaten down like little babies. And it really it angered me, because we had good players that they'd get smacked in that drill and they could never do anything else ever again. Jeff Rittenhouse, thank you for the 5. Kirk Odom looks good at chopping his feet after shedding the initial block. Wow. Still keeps his head up with his weight on his toes. Very rare. I agree. I mean, again, this is a guy who's very astute and he's watched a lot of film. I think Odom has a lot of great intangibles athletically. I think he's a guy that's explosive, and I think that's why we're taking him. I think that, Larry is, he's been around the block. Larry, the cool thing about Larry Johnson is that if you think you're if you're Jakeem Stewart, who's the number 1 player in the country, reclassified at 2025, coach, who's the best guy you've ever coached? Well, I don't know. I had Jimmy Kennedy went, top 15. I had Joey Bosa went 3rd overall. I had Nick Bosa go 2 overall. I had Chase Young go 2 overall. So, when these kids think they're hot stuff and they show up to LJ's altar and they're just like, well, coach, you've had way better players than me. It's like, yeah, but I think you could be that next one. You could be that next top 15 guy. You could be that next guy. It's like, like LJ, this is why I hate, like, the LJ slander last year. It was from the most dishonest, dumbest people in the Ohio State media, these credentialed morons that don't know what they're doing. And they were, LJ needs to retire. He's lazy. Oh, he doesn't recruit defensive tackles. And again, a lot of that was coming from people in the Woody Hayes that are dishonest and they're not good people. And LJ, rebutted it all. He got an extension. Again, he's making like $1.1 million to be a D-line coach, base salary. So, somebody thinks pretty highly of him. And again, if my kid was a defensive lineman, he's the only guy in the world I consider. Like, there's nobody in the world I'd consider to tutor him on pass rush moves, especially with the new rules where he doesn't have to go on the road as much. You can send Leon Clark out or whoever. Like, as long as Yoda is sitting in Dagobah in the dungeon at the Woody Hayes, I'm good with it. I don't care if he ever comes to see my kid. As long as he can coach my kid and teach him his pass rush moves, I'm good with it. Nevada, Jeff Rittenhouse, again, thank you for the 5. He says, Odom looks good at chopping his feet after shedding the initial block while keeping his head up, but weight on his toes is very rare. Your thoughts on Odom, Nevada?
Ohio State thinks he's a really refined kid. He's a kid that's really polished, and a lot of defensive linemen you look at the high school level just get by on athleticism, sheer strength, being bigger than the guys they're playing against. And that's not Odom's thing. Odom's a technician, and Larry likes that about him. He really can take those guys and kind of refine that technique, take it to the next level, and they're excited about it. This would be a really big get for Ohio State, and I hope it happens. I'm fingers crossed.
Yeah, I totally agree. Nate Sayer 23, thank you for the 5. Excuse me, haven't been able to catch a live show in a while. Hope everyone's doing well. Who do you think stays at OSU longer, Heartline or Chip? Nevada OH. Nevada, I'll let you go first. I'll let you go first on
Heartline
on this one.
Heartline or Chip,
or
man.
Chip Kelly.
That's a great. I was going to say Chip Trainum. I think Chip's gone, man. Chip's already gone.
Chip got
I'm.
paid, man. God bless him.
Yeah, he did. He got the bag.
Three through forever.
Yes, he did. Boy, that is a tough question. I'm going to go with Chip Kelly. I'm going to say Chip Kelly's going to stay longer than Brian Hartline because I just think Chip's on his not his way down the ladder, but he's already been up the ladder, and Brian's still climbing. And I
Yep.
think Chip could be really settle in this role and be happy with it for a long time. Whereas I think Brian's got to have those wandering eyes because somebody's going to come in and offer him 8 million a year or something like that to be the head coach, and it's got to happen. It's I think we'll all look at it and gotta go. He's never even been a head coach before. This is silly. He's never even been a coordinator. But somebody's going to take a chance on him. They're going to throw the bag at him. I hope it doesn't happen, but I think that would be my guess. So I'll say Chip Kelly, final answer.
I think that's a good call. I think that Chip's gonna be here longer. I mean, Brian is he recruits like a monster. Again, there was a decent wide receivers coach that I know of who never called a play before. He was a good recruiter, a lot of energy. I don't think he had veneers. He didn't have the donkey teeth like Brian does. But Urban Meyer was a guy who, the difference between Urban and Brian is, Brian played in the league for a long time, and Brian makes he makes 1.7 or whatever. He makes 1.7 million right now. Urban obviously was not making that in the late '90s at Notre Dame. So Brian can be way more choosy than Urban. Urban wanted to start his own program, and he had to go to a really bad program at Bowling Green that probably didn't pay him very much. And Brian can be a lot more selective because Brian's from here. His wife is from Gahanna. So one of the underrated traits that you deal with when you're a coach is like, look, what kind of support system does my wife have in place? So his wife is from Gahanna, Lincoln. So, if Brian is on the road recruiting Miami for 4 days, like, his wife's family's nearby. They can help watch the three kids. Like he's got a nice house. He's got a bunch of land. There's a lot of perks to working and being at your alma mater that you don't get elsewhere. But I think eventually, Brian wants to spread his wings because I think Brian's ultimate goal is to be the head coach at Ohio State, and it's hard to do that if you've never been a coordinator, you've never ran another program. As much as people like him, I think people want to see what do you do if you leave the nest, because Brian's never left the nest before. He was with the Dolphins and the Browns and whatever in the NFL, but from a coaching perspective, he's never been outside of Ohio State, and I think it's good and bad. I mean, obviously, it's good because he's been he can sell the program. He's been a great recruiter, whatever. But can he do it elsewhere where it's not as advantageous? That's the big question. So I think that Chip is a guy who's already made a fortune, coached with the Eagles, coached with the 49ers, fired at both. But when you're fired in the league and you've got long-term contracts, like you get paid on that. Was it Oregon made a bunch of money? Was it UCLA made a bunch of money? And now he's at Ohio State making, 2.5 million to be a coordinator. So, eventually I think when you're a guy like Chip Kelly, who's a simpleton and he's not a flashy guy, like if you've got tens of millions in the bank, like what else do you really need other than just to enjoy your life? Which I think that's where Chip is in his life, where it's like, he doesn't need to, chase a check and have his agent, throwing his name out for every major college football opening, as opposed to just being happy and not having to deal with NIL, not having to deal with being the guy that the head duck, where you have to be the lead recruiter on all these big prospects. And so again, if you're Chip, eventually, sometimes it's not bad being the number two, especially if the number one is a guy that you trained and you're basically like his father. That makes your life way easier. So I totally agree. I think Brian's out here first, just because he's got to go spread his wings to go potentially be the Ohio State head coach one day. Naysayer, excuse me, Josh Dillon, I apologize. My boy Kucherov is on here. Thank you for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. If they make a movie about the Michigan scandal, it needs to be called Fall of the House of Harbaugh. I really like that title. Nevada, what are your thoughts? What would you name a movie about the fall of Michigan football?
I think it'd be more like the Amityville Horror or something like that. There's got to be some sort of cabin fever, some sort of horror movie thing, because you've got everything. You've got the super villains. You've got kind of the Freddy Krueger guy there in terms of Harbaugh, and you've got Connor Stalions, which is kind of like the idiot son, kind of like the Fredo character, and and then you have a real Fredo in terms of the other Harbaugh there, and um, yeah, no, I think eventually there's going to be a 30 for 30 done on this. There's going to be something that kind of digs. There'll be a book written about it. One of the players. Now, interestingly enough, obviously if it's written from the Michigan perspective, it'll be one thing. If it's an investigative report by somebody that really kind of gets into it, I think it'd be an amazing story, because I do want to hear about Uncle T and how he funded this, and the whole vacuum cleaner salesman thing, and Blake Corum getting up and saying, "I didn't even know I was on the LLC. How the heck did that happen?" And I mean, just there's
God.
about 19 different things that are just interesting subplots. The whole Weiss sex crimes against minors, practice tape, gambling, cooking. I mean, you've got so many dimensions to this story. I'm not even sure where to start, but it would make a great book if somebody could really, unfurl the whole thing.
How long do you think it'll take for that to come out?
It's probably going to be a while. I don't know if there ever will be a book on the thing, because I think I'm trying to think about if there's ever been a book on a scandal like this, but it'll make a good 30 for 30. Just
Well,
watching Harbaugh kind of unwind and stuff like that. That's tasty.
for me, it reminds me of Devin Shapiro. So Devin Shapiro was the guy who got pinched at Miami for taking all the players out, for giving money to Donna Shalala, and he ran like a basically like a fraudulent like grocery store company, basically a Ponzi scheme. And he gave Miami a ton of money. He used to run out of the tunnel with him. You guys can Google Nevin Shapiro, but he's out now. He was in the can for like 10 years. He's out now, and man, he sings like a canary. And I mean, what he did was pretty egregious. But I think that's probably about the timeline, probably about 10 years, and all of the dirt will come out. Your Connor Stallions will get some Netflix 30 for 30, and they'll pay him a bunch of money, because that's the thing about when there's something that's like this stupid. HBO or Netflix, they're always ready to pay for a documentary. And again, I don't think like Connor Stein is going to need that much money, but it was like the Bishop Sycamore thing where they were playing 22-year-olds in high school games versus St. Ignatius, and playing 2 games in a day and all that. Like, I mean, HBO and Nevada's boy LeBron James and King James's Enterprises, whatever, they paid to hear that whole story of Bishop Sycamore. So that was like when something is like that stupid, there's always an audience for it. So there's going to be a point where HBO or Netflix is going to call Michigan. They're going to reach out to Connor Stallions. They're not going to call Michigan. They're going to call the Chris Partridge, all of the wronged aggrieved parties, Mike Hart, who's unemployed right now, and is a total douchebag. They're going to call those guys and say, hey, we'll pay you guys each $250,000 to tell your side of the story, and we're going to film it. We're going to splice, the Connor Stallions at the Michigan State game in his Central Michigan gear, and it all in 10 years it'll all just be a big dumb laugh after they get smoked, because that's not like Miami. The Miami Hurricanes got smoked after all that went down, but 10, 15 years later, it's just like a 30 for 30. This is what happened, the U part 3 or whatever. So I think that's kind of the timeline that I'm expecting. But it'll be interesting, because I think Michigan's going to get absolutely destroyed by the NCAA, because those compliance directors have a lot of stuff hanging on their heads. And when you get head into that investigation, you can't miss. And down on Karen at Rossbeck, thank you for the 5. Thanks for being an ultra member as well. I hope and believe now that Gene is leaving OC Tressel at the Woody and around the program a lot. What do you guys think, Nevada OH? As much as I'd love to bag on Gene, because I think Gene was incompetent and stupid during his tenure, I think it has a lot more to do with Tress being retired than it does Gene leaving. Obviously, Gene is a coward, and he's a guy that stabbed Tressel in the back, and Tress fell on the sword because he's a noble human being. But I don't think it has anything to do with Gene leaving that Tress is around. I just think it has to do with the time frames and the schedule that Tress has now, as opposed to running a university. I mean, running a major university like Youngstown State is 70 hours a week plus all of the other ancillary stuff you have to do. So I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think that our athletic department and our university are on the highest trajectory I've ever seen, just because of what I've heard about Ross Bjork and Slapshot Ted Carter. So I'm very, very excited. Jim Tressel has had incredible interactions with them and is all thumbs up on that. But again, I hope that we've got real leadership now, which we haven't had for 20 years at the top of our athletic department in our university. Nevada, Donald and Karen Rosbeck, again, thank you for the ultra, thanks for the 5. I hope and believe now that Gene is leaving University Trust with the Woody and around the program a lot. What do you guys think, Nevada OH?
I look, I think, yeah, we always try to be fair on the show. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I do wonder, though, the one thing we didn't talk about was, somewhere in the back of Tressel's mind, it's got to be, they didn't move on Tressel until they knew they had Meyer. You know that. I know that. So even though there was a person there in between in terms of Luke, um, somehow we went from them saying, I hope Jim Tressel doesn't fire me, to him getting unceremoniously dismissed there on Memorial Day or whatever it was. And what happened between those two things is they knew that they were getting Urban Meyer. So I just wonder in the back of his mind somewhere for Tressel that he doesn't have some lingering resentment about the fact that Meyer, I don't know, that Meyer made a commitment when he was still the head coach, and that ultimately caused my downfall, or if Jim's more refined than that, because you're talking about a great man. I mean, Jim Tressel is truly a great man. Doesn't hold grudges. Should be the president of the United States. Just a great, great, great guy. But I wonder if he has any resentment about that, and because the way that whole thing went down was weird. It was odd, and the timing was always wonky to me, and I'm sure it was to him as well.
You should imagine working there.
I can't imagine.
You should imagine. I mean, I'll never forget Beano Cook, and like for the rest of my life, of all the things I'll ever remember, Beano's, he's long gone and predicted that Ron Powell would win 2 Heisman's. Beano Cook projected that Urban Meyer would be the head coach in 2012. Before Chelsea got fired, we're going to pull it up right now. Urban Meyer, Ohio State. I remember I was in the coaching locker room, and I showed that to Tress, and I was like, hey, like, what does this mean? Because I'm a young coach. I'm dumb. I don't know what's going on. Like, why would Beano Cook randomly say Urban Meyer will be the coach? And this was published April 22nd. So this is like our spring game, the week of our spring game.
Wait a second. You asked Tressel about this?
No, I showed it to him. I showed him the article. I was like, do you know something I don't know? And again,
hey, these guys say you're going to be fired, coach. What do you
No, but you know how it is when there's a leaky ship, man. I mean, there's a lot of, again, the one thing I've learned about secrets and Ohio State and donors and rich folks is, like, when they know something, they can't wait to squeal like little pigs. So, when they know that, hey, we've got Urban in the grasp, and we've got, we're just dialing everything up, and, if this thing goes sideways or whatever, like, so again, like, I'm slicker than the average because I've lived it, but I was like, this is a pretty bold proclamation, because this is when the university was behind him. This is when they said, oh, you're going to have an appeal, and we're standing behind you. And again, like, we were like all systems go. We had, Terrell was our quarterback. We just won the Sugar Bowl, 4 months earlier. So it was a very interesting time in a young coach's life, where I was like, why would Beano Cook just randomly throw this out? And again, I know a lot of people were chirping about it, but a lot of people are message board people, and they could say that Luke Fickell is going to be our coach next year or whatever. But like when Beano Cook, who was at the time, a guy that people thought knew stuff and people talked to, said this was, I'll literally never forget that. And then, sure as can be, came to fruition, because again, a lot of the stuff that happens at Ohio State or at major universities or major, corporations, they're 50 levels above the people that it affects. So yeah, that was interesting. Nevada, so you don't remember this at all?
I mean, I remember there being stuff out there about it. I didn't remember Bino Cook being out there, but I remember when I got the news of it. I remember breaking the news of it, and uh, at the time, it wasn't in wide pop. I mean, I think Bino Cook was viewed kind of like Lou Holtz is now. It's kind of like an old kind of buffoon that just kind of says stuff, and you weren't sure why he was saying or what he was saying, but he was prophetic on this one. That's for sure. I didn't know that, but he certainly had that one nailed.
Well, I
Might have been
mean,
an accident, but he had it. But he had it nailed.
yeah, but I mean, I don't say it's not a totally ballsy call, but like, when he said it to, Bob Hunter on the Dispatch. He said, I think Ohio State has major problems. I think Jim Tressel has major problems. I said on my podcast, Urban Meyer will be the coach at Ohio State in 2012. That was my prediction. I stick by my prediction. And again, when people do that, there's generally some sort of a deal where, because Urban at this time during 2011 was like, I'm not coaching. I've retired. I had the esophageal spasms. I can't ever coach again. It's too hard on me. So, and he was working for ESPN for 20. Now, again, Urban, who I love to death, will sly like a fox. And when he coached it, when he worked for ESPN in 2011, he was scouting his next coaching staff. So he went to Oregon, he went to Notre Dame, he went to Michigan, Texas, everywhere, because he was looking for his next group of assistants, which is what, nobody ever told him. That's not in any of his books, but that was what he said he was doing, which again, that's why he's a genius. And it was just like, it was hilarious because I was just sitting there and I'm like, I never forgot that, because I was like, why would Bino Cook say that randomly when, the administration is quote unquote behind Jim Tressel, but they really weren't. And again, I lived the '06 Florida game where we got absolutely destroyed. And when that happened, there was always this undertow of the fan base of the big donors that were like, we want Urban. He's from Ohio. He's a psychopath. We hate Jim Tressel's offense because it's so slow and boring and methodical. We want Urban's crazy spread stuff and his psychopath mentality on the sideline. And that was kind of what it was. And so, I always thought it was going to happen, but when it actually happened, it was pretty interesting to see. Buckeye B, thanks for the deuce. Preach on about Jim Tressel, a great leader. He's the best. I mean, you can't find a better human being on this earth than Jim Tressel. And the problem with Tress, and I tell this to people all the time, is like, he's such a good person that people think he's fake. And I'm like, no, he's really like that. He's really that dude. He does great things for people all the time, helps people out all the time, never wants any credit, doesn't want any cameras, doesn't want any notoriety, doesn't want anything. But that's just how he is. And he is as saintly and as good of a human being as I've ever been around. Nevada, your thoughts. Again, thanks for the deuce. Buckeye BA. Preach on about Jay Tressel, a great leader. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, he's one in a million. I mean, he's that guy that's like that walking coffee table book guy that's always saying those deep things, but he really means it. And yeah, we were really lucky to have him, and the contrast between him and Meyer, were vast in terms of style there, but they were both successful. They show you don't have to have one particular style for success. But Tressel's, I mean, you don't like to throw the word great man around too much, but he's a great man, a great man. And he certainly led the Ohio State Buckeyes in an exemplary fashion, and he's lived his whole life that way. And I have nothing but respect for him.
Well, the funny thing about Tress is he was a modern day Woody Hayes. That's why I tell people, I'm like, because Woody was a guy, conservative, run the ball, play great defense. But on the off the field thing, he was, don't take huge pay raises. I mean, there were years where he got offered pay raises, he turned them down just because he felt like he was doing something negative towards the community. I mean, no coach in the world will do that now, but Woody did. And Tress, I'm telling you, for the budget, Tress is the greatest coach in Ohio State history, bar none. I mean, we ran on a shoestring budget. We were the cheapest program probably in America, And Truss didn't care. He made it work. You're happy to be here again, and that's part of that one AA mentality. Which again, when Urban showed up with the SEC thing, it was like f that, all f that noise, all this stuff that you guys have been doing, where you guys are cheap. Like we would, like I mean, when I was a grad assistant, I shared my computer with another GA, and we would kill each other to be able to have the computer that could connect to the film and the infrastructure and the thing. And I mean, when I told Brian Voltolini when they showed up in 2012, I said, look, I'll never ask you guys for anything, but if I could get a laptop to do my film work where I have to break down film and do projects and all that, I literally said, I will pay for that out of my pocket. Even if it costs $3,000, I'll do it. Even though you guys are paying me $17,000 a year, I'll give you guys $3,000 of my salary to have a laptop. And he's like, you don't have your own laptop? And I was like, no. And I offered to buy one for 2 years. I said, I will pay for it because I'm so far behind in my work every day because me and the other GA fight over the laptop on offense. And defense was the same way. The defense had one laptop and the offense had one laptop. And, you know, like a lot of you guys work in corporate America, a lot of you guys work for big companies, whatever. So imagine if you guys had to share a laptop with somebody and instead of being as productive as you can for, 100% of the day, you have to wait for your compadre to get done with their work so that you could work. I mean, it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And Brian Voltolini, I had a new laptop in 3 days, ordered all the film put on it, all the data stuff put on it. So it was like we were stupid cheap, like stupid cheap. Our gear sucked. But again, I told people Tressel is the greatest value in the history of coaching because he didn't care about that. He didn't want to care about it. He didn't want to hear anything about it because, somehow we made it work. We won Big Ten titles year over year, being the cheapest program in America. And then Urban showed up, and God bless Urban Meyer because he actually made our athletic department spend money on football. And again, our athletic director was pathetic for 20 years because we never rebuilt the Woody Hayes, and football never really got what they really deserved based on how much money they brought in. So now Ross Bjork is like supersonic fundraising to build a new Woody Hayes and get us what the football team needs. And God bless him because he understands what it's about because he's been at A&M and he's seen what like real football facilities look like versus what we have, which is the worst in the Big Ten. So I'm super excited about that. Coconut Dreams 123. Thanks for an ultra member. Appreciate you, my friend. Hickory Dickory Shock. The rats ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. Scum was done. Hickory Dickory Shock. Nevada OH.
Yeah,
we've got creative members of the Scoop family. I'm just telling you, Coconut Dreams, that is fantastic. I appreciate you, my man. Thank you for the 5 and being an ultra member. Nevada, where does that rank in super chats? That's pretty good, man. It's all rhymes, it's phonetic, like we're out here doing good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that one made me laugh. Whenever you get the audible laugh out of Nevadabuck, that's a good one. That was a quality effort. I expect the quality efforts from it. We have the smartest audience on the internet. There's absolutely no question about it. And these super chats just reflect that. That was great. I got a big kick out of it. Thanks for sharing that one.
That was literally excellent, Coconut Dreams. I appreciate you, brother, for being on here every night. Tom Gombar, thank you for the 5. Do you guys think that with the news today, the NCAA is close to delivering punishment to scum? Nevada, what are your thoughts?
I think they are. I think it's. But again, I'm kind of conflicted because I know that they expanded the scope of the investigation, that they assigned additional resources to it, and so I'm a little hesitant to declare the end. But I do believe that we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. But I don't know if that's a beginning, if that's a fall thing, if that's a beginning of the season thing, or it could be next week. But I do not know for sure on the timing. But and that's why when I hear somebody saying that they do know, I know they don't know. I know they don't know because if it was close, I would be able to tell you that. So I think we're closer to the beginning, to the end than the beginning, but I don't know exactly the timeline on that.
So when people say that, do you think that they're just dumb or they're just guessing, or what is your initial reaction when they say, I know this is going to happen or this isn't going to happen.
No, they're just lying. They're lying. It's not dumb and it's not guessing. They're just lying because they're
Yeah.
presenting it like they know or that they got some information or something. They don't have any information. They don't have any information. Michigan has not been exonerated. They're not going to get an apology. Connor Stalions is not going to be reinstated. None of these things that they're saying are true. And so like I said, I'd like to say it was an innocent mistake, but it just felt contrived. It felt like Michigan planted that story, and those guys ran with it before the recruiting weekend, and I think that was it was tactical on the part of Michigan.
Totally agree. Ref 49, this is a great question. Thank you for the 10. Coop chewed his fingernails. Day and Meyer blow up and throw headgear. But Tress always was composed and exuded confidence in the biggest moments. Who would players respond to better during games? Well, I'm biased. I played for Tress, and obviously, when you're the head guy, you're probably not decimating and blowing up on O linemen. So I never saw it. Ryan was a little different because he was the offensive coordinator basically the last since he's been there. So he'd blow up on the O line and whatever. And there were times where I've seen, not to be critical of Ryan, I've seen him scream at Jimmy Simmons and and I think that when you're ultra emotional on the sideline, you look weak. I think you look scared. I really believe in scared dogs bark the loudest. So I love how Tress carried himself. When I coached for that short little 3 years, I tried to be like Tress because when I'd come in at halftime, if we were doing good, doing bad, whatever, I'd always try to be composed. I'd always try to talk to the guys because I go talk to the lineman before I head back up to the press box and just kind of give them like, hey guys, this is what we're getting. Get on the grease board, draw it up for Jack Mewhort and Lindsley and Norwell. This is how we're going to fix it. This is what we're going to do. This is the plan, blah, blah, blah. But I wouldn't go in there and just like scream at them and act like a moron. Because I think that when coaches do that, I think a lot of times they're scared, they're nervous. And I don't think it reflects great to the players when you're acting like a belligerent moron. That's just my opinion. And again, I've sat in locker rooms where coordinators are crazy, where they're calm. And I think that the calm ones are the ones like, hey, okay, this is what they gave us. This is what gave us trouble. We're up by 7. We're down by 7, whatever. You kind of get it all squared away and away you go. And I just think that being calm and not relaxed, but just being calm, it calms the players down. Because, again, I know everybody thinks that every locker room is like a insane asylum and people are screaming at each other and they've got their music blasting, whatever. But like, you want to make sure that the guys know what they're doing and that they're confident in the plan. And again, it's not to be sedated or lackluster. It's just to say, hey guys, this is what we need to fix. I know that you guys are going to play hard because that's always was like guys like Norwell and Mewhort and Lindsley. Like I didn't have to question if they're going to play hard. I didn't have to question if they had pride, if they wanted to win. I knew they had all that. You just have to put them in the right direction, guys. This is what we're going to fix. This is what you guys need to do. Like I don't need to go mother F like those guys because they were that good and they were that tough and they just want guidance on what to do. It's like Pat Elflein the same way. It's like Pat Elflein, like I never had to scream at Pat Elflein because he wanted to do everything possible to be letter perfect at everything he did. So I didn't have to scream at him and say and motivate him. And there's some kids you do have to do that because there's some kids that you get them there, they don't like football, they don't want to practice that day, but the best guys aren't like that. So I love how Tress carried himself because he couldn't have done anything more to motivate me because I always wanted to play hard for him just because he was always he was composed and in the moment and he didn't act like a total moron because most of us that played for him like me, James Laurinaitis, Malcolm Jenkins, Beanie Wells, like you don't need to destroy us to get us to play hard because we will just happily play hard for you just because of how much we believe in you. So that's my opinion. Nevada, again, ref 49, thank you for the 10. He says, John Cooper chewed his fingernails. Ryan Day and Urban Meyer blow up and throw headgear. But Tress was always composed and exuded confidence in the biggest moments. Who would the players respond to better during games? What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, I want to take the question though, and just or the observation, just move it a little bit, like 15 degrees. The one area that I don't think it helped us was with the referees. And I think, you look at, there's a stat about number of penalties called on the opposition, and Ohio State was always like dead last in this category throughout the Tressel years. And I firmly believe it was because he didn't work the officials enough. He wasn't hard enough on the officials, and that's one thing I've had some experience with in my tenure in sports. Talking to hockey coaches, talking to baseball coaches, and you talk to hockey coaches and you say, "Well, why do you work the officials? Why do you yell at those guys?" And it's like, because it works. That's why you do it. And I think that was one area that I don't think that Tressel was hard enough on. He would seemingly be kind of impassive in those situations. I don't remember any times where he's really unloading on the referees. And I think those referees they're absolutely human. They absolutely listen. That's why if you've got a big play and it's fourth down and you're going for that big play and you're going for that big situation, you want to throw it towards your sideline, because if you throw it towards your sideline, you have a chance for your guys all to be screaming at the official for pass interference, because you know what? That matters and that works. So, well, I'll leave you to the motivation thing. I just focus on the referee thing. That was one area that I thought that Urban Meyer or Ryan Day working the officials works to our benefit. Where I think Tressel was a little. I don't think he yelled at the officials enough. And I know maybe that sounds silly. Maybe that's a stupid thing, but that's what I feel.
I totally agree. I mean, I think if the officials think you're a pushover, they're not going to give you the calls. I think that, if you point out and you have good hard evidence that, hey, you guys missed that one here, there's a big, and again, Ohio Stadium, and again, you guys probably Kirk's biggest hater in the world, but it's like Ohio Stadium has the worst replay. Not because they're not officials. The people that run the replays at Ohio Stadium should be fired. They should be drawn and quartered. They're so bad. Because if I ran that thing, if you said, Kirk, you get to run the replay board, every time there was a contested call or a play that you could challenge, I would put that on the big screen in the shoe. They never, our people never do that. They play Hang On Sloopy, or they play some stupid like Roosters commercial or something instead of something that could help the team. And it drives me absolutely crazy. But I think that working the officials matters. Again, I'm like you. After I was done as a GA at Ohio State, I coached Dublin Jerome youth football, the DFL, and I'll never forget, we were in the championship game at Dublin Kaufman High School, and I literally told the official who was the line judge, the guy that looks right down the line at the ball. I'm like, sir, their defensive tackle lines up offsides every single play. Like our little center, our little tiny center is out there, and he puts the ball out over the line, and that guy's hand is past the ball. Like his hand is past. I mean, that is the easiest call to make in all of sports. Easiest call. It's like out of bounds in the NBA. Like if a guy runs out of bounds, he's out of bounds. That's not like a foul. That's not like we're not going to call this because we want the flow of the game to be good. Like if a guy is out of bounds, he's out of bounds. If a guy is offsides, he's offsides. And this official would not call it. And I'm like, sir, his hand is past the ball. I'm like, come look down the line right with me, right down the line. And nope. And again, I was on that with Drell Worthy at Michigan State, who beat us in 11. He did the same thing because, again, defensive tackles, if they know how stupid officiating crews are, they will literally sit there and do it. They'll do it until it gets called. And again, if you've never played offensive line, which I know a lot of you haven't, if someone's offsides, it's the biggest cheat code there is. Again, it would be like if you guys had to run like a 10-yard dash and somebody lined up at 8 yards and you had to line up at 10. Like, I mean, if someone's got a head start on you, like you're torched unless you're just that much more athletic. If the same everything and someone's 2 yards ahead of you, it's over. It's a wrap. So, but I agree. I think that your remarks on Tressel are spot on. And you have to give those guys a little bit of a smoke. Blue Wolverine, thank you for being an ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Wow, the U.S. national football team lost to Japan today, 41-20. it was a U20 team though. That is interesting. I don't know what kind of talent plays on this thing, but Japan being in football is something that I never would bet on, but it happened. I know that whatever tournament this is, I think it's the same one where Canada played Brazil the other day. They won like 105-0 or something insane. But that's interesting. But I don't know what the talent is on a U20 team in USA when most of the best players that are U20 are at Bama or Florida or Georgia. So I don't know if this is made up of 1AA kids or Division III kids, but even still, they should still be able to beat Japan. But just my opinion. Nevada, your reaction? The U.S. national football team lost to Japan today, 41-20. I don't think it matters because I think 99% of our best players are all in college somewhere. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, I didn't even know we had a national team in football. So, and I do this for a living. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure if this is like one of those pay to play things, kind of like when you get invited to like a hockey tournament in Bolzano, Italy, to play for the
Yeah.
U.S. team or something like that. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly who was playing on this. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm not sure. Was it tackle? Was it flag? Was this like? Was this like the women's league, or was I mean like I don't even know what this is. So, but that is interesting.
Well, what's interesting is there was a time where in '09, Jack Mewhort was a freshman at Ohio State, and they had a tournament that was like this. And he was enrolled at Ohio State, early enrollee, but he had some sort of a thing where he could leave Ohio State and go play for this under 20 national team. And they did it actually in Canton, and they won the gold. They beat Canada in the gold medal game. But it was like, Jack's team had some NFL dudes, like some, like the one guy was he was a running back, I believe, from Virginia Tech. I think he went first round of the Giants or second round of the Giants. And he was one of the star guys. I mean, there were like some like notable guys that were on this team. So it's interesting because I don't, if I was Ohio State, I don't know if I would release any of my guys to play in this. But if a guy's a young guy and he's got a red shirt and he's not JJ Smith, like, might let him play. But like I said, the last time I heard about something like this, it was something where kids could literally leave college in the middle of summer conditioning and go practice for like a couple weeks and then play for like a month in this little tournament. So again, that's pretty interesting. Paul Lewis, what is up, my friend? Thank you for the 50. Thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for Kim's jacket. I hope to see you on Saturday at the at Twin Peaks. Again, you burned the place down last time you were there, and you were awesome. So I appreciate you being there, my friend. Thank you for the 50. Hi, guys. Will Terrell Pryor ever be welcome back to Nevada? I'm going to let you take this one because I know that he's got a soft spot in your cold, rigid, angry heart. But Terrell is he's a guy that I think what they did to him was criminal, but it's my opinion. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I'm like the Grinch where my little heart grew 3 sizes when you said the name Terrell Pryor. I love Terrell Pryor. I think Terrell Pryor is one of the most misunderstood guys that ever played at Ohio State, and he absolutely will be welcome back. He absolutely should be welcome back. That guy is a hero. I mean, Maurice Claret is brought in to speak to the thing, and Maurice Claret literally tried to burn the program down to the ground. And Terrell Pryor didn't say a word, took his punishment, took all the garbage that was thrown at him, and never said a bad word about Ohio State, about Tressel, about anything. He just took it. And I have mad respect for Terrell. I know he's made a lot of errors in his life and done stuff, but boy, what a tremendous athlete. A guy that I view as like the savior of the program, because I can't imagine what the program would have been like those years without him. I feel like we were really robbed of something special not seeing his senior year. But no, he should absolutely be back. And when he's back, I'll be there and I'll be cheering the loudest because I love me some Terrell Pryor.
I'll tell you what, man. We saw 1 year without Terrell in 2011. We lost 7 games. Worst team in Ohio State history, bar none. So I lived a year with not Terrell, with Joe Bowserman and freshman Braxton. And like, Terrell was a guy that in 10, if we didn't have Terrell, we probably was 5 games. But he was so good that he carried us to 12-1, and we beat Arkansas, when the SEC was invincible, because he was that guy. I mean, he was a one-man tsunami on offense. And I mean, the stuff that I watched that kid did, I was like, he erased a lot of bad play, a lot of average everything just because he was so good. So again, I like Terrell. I never had any issues with Terrell. I know that there's some people that don't like him. I think it's a crime against humanity. He hasn't been welcomed back, but this is my opinion. And again, I could be wrong, and people could say whatever, but there's a lot of guys who have been. There's a lot of guys that are absolute scumbags that are part of Ohio State football now, and guys that played at Ohio State that I know, that were nowhere near what Terrell was, and they were way worse human beings, but they just haven't been buried by the university like Terrell was. So just my opinion. Nevada, let's wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
Closing in on 31,000 subscribers. If you are listening on Twitter or Facebook Live or on YouTube Live, and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Help us get to 31. We're literally a handful away from 31,000. So just hit that subscribe button, and if you could give us a little like on the way out, that's even better. The little thumbs up helps other people find the video, and we really appreciate you. And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys had a great night with us. Again, we'll be back again tomorrow. Again, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Support our armed force officers, men, women, boys in blue, women in blue, our military. We appreciate all of you. Thank you so much, first responders. Thank you so much. If you guys want the #1 experience in Ohio State football, if you are one of the greatest Ohio State fans in the entire world, or your friends are, your folks are, BuckeyeScoop.com is where you need to be. Recruiting stuff is overflowing right now. It's absolutely crazy. Breaking stuff left and right about who's about to commit. So we'd love to have you guys on our message board, BuckeyeScoop.com. That is where we are the other 20 hours of the day that we aren't podcasting. So we'd love to have you guys on there enjoying our community. If you guys want a great time, Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Twin Peaks Polaris Parkway next to Polaris Mall. The only Twin Peaks in Columbus. We will be there 11 to 2. Me, Kim, Andy, Joe Taylor, the whole crew. It's going to be awesome. Would love to see you guys. I think it'll be a great time. But as always, thank you so much for making this a huge show. This is a huge show because you guys made it one. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to have you guys as always. So thank you so much for all that you guys do. I hope you guys have a great night. We'll see you guys again at 7 tomorrow. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.